Hello again, MMA True Believers. This is Jason Burgos for Sherdog.com, and I am joined tonight by a fighter who has a very important fight in front of her on November 8th in Manila, Philippines. There she will go toe-to-toe with one of the best strikers in all of One Championship and one Muay Thai and Kickboxing champion, Stamp Fairtex. However, this fight won't be under Muay Thai or kickbox rules. It will be in MMA, which gives my guest a serious chance to sting her way to victory on fight night, and that is the Killer Bee herself. Nguyen. B, thank you for giving me some time so close to your fight. It's like 48 hours away.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the interest.
Now, before we get into this fight you have coming up, I wanted to learn more about you and your journey into this sport that we love. I read you moved from here from Vietnam as a child. How young were you when you came to the U.S. and what was the transition like? Was it hard, or you were so young you barely even remember it?
The move was like I had no idea where we were going. We were just at an airport. My first time at airports, I was excited. I was 6 turning 7,
Wow. Okay.
and I was just so excited until we got to school. Until, of course, we all know the social pressures and the social differences. That's when it started getting hard for me to go to school where it's apparently American culture, and then go home. And my parents are very much older, so it's like going from Vietnam to America every single day,
Yeah.
and don't really know where you belong, So that was tough, but made me tougher. So I'm happy about it.
Was there a lot of because you're influenced by the people and your classmates and stuff like that? Was there a lot of clashing with your parents? Are they more old school traditional types?
So much clash because, well, mostly with my sisters too. They were all raised in Vietnam, and so I'll go to school and it'll be like, oh well, my friends got choices of what lunch they ate, or they get to go play after school, or they have sports, and then I go home and my parents are like, you have a roof over your head? Okay. You have food? Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. That's it. Simple needs of.
In your bio that they have on One Championship's website, I also read you didn't even get into martial arts until you were 21 when you started taking up Muay Thai. Before that, were you at least like a combat sports fan, mixed martial arts fan, or you sort of discovered it all when you started doing Muay Thai?
I discovered it all when I started doing Muay Thai. I had no idea about martial arts. I told you my parents couldn't afford to do any sports for us to do sports, so I never did any sports. I actually went to the Muay Thai class for self-defense, and then I started watching from there, and it was a whole new world to me. It was like my world just opened up. Like, women are competing, Strike Force. I remember Misha Tate and Rhonda and Cyborg and so Gina Carano. So it was just a whole new world for me, and I realized like women can do this, and so I started training.
What was your family's thoughts when you got into professional fighting? Because because where you're coming from in Asia, I mean, this martial arts. I don't know what the culture's like in terms of if fighting and martial arts is more acceptable, or were they like, whoa, 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 this fighting thing, I don't know about this.
Yeah, for sure. Have you ever seen the meme when you turn 30, your parents are like, "How come you're not a doctor or a lawyer yet?" That's really accurate in Asian culture. They're very interested in the college and your education more than anything else. Not a lot of women do sports in Vietnam. Even to this day, we don't have a lot of women iconic athletes in Vietnam. So of course, whatever's new to you, you're a little afraid, especially when you're invested like it's your child. So my mom was like, "Oh my God, why are you doing this? What future do you have in this?" But my dad was a fight fan, so
Interesting.
that was really fun. He was a big boxing fan, so that was fun. But definitely scary and just new to them.
How
But they
long?
got.
How long did it take? Has your mom come around to it or not yet?
Yeah, I think like everything in life, you kind of like you're a little scared at first for somebody to accept you, but when you stick to what you're doing and you give yourself the respect, I think others give you the respect. So my families now know, what, she's dedicated. No matter what we've said, she's done it, and she's pretty damn good at it. So now my family respects it, and they actually watch, and they're a fan of it now.
This is a big fight for you coming up. Stamp is a major star for one. Along with Angela Lee. She's probably one of the lead female favorites faces for the entire promotion. So of course they, they want to continue to build her as an MMA fighter and see if she can become this three-sport champion that they can really sell and market and stuff like that, which would be, a major win for them. With that in mind, do you feel like they want to use you as like a building block to that end game of three-sport champion? And does that in any way like kind of offend you? You're in your 10th fight. This is like her third fight. Are you bothered? Is that added motivation for this fight?
You would think that, and yes, they definitely want their two-sport star to become a three-sport star. But one thing I do respect about one is you notice, like, ever since I've only been here a little bit, but I fought so actively. For them to put Stamp against, they can put her against anybody I've beaten. But for them to put Stamp against somebody as experienced as me and as skilled as me, I think that instead of being offended that they want her to win, I don't really know who they want to win. But I know that they're challenging her. And that in itself kind of gives me the respect of one championship. They could have given her me later. Do you know what I mean? They could have built her up a little more, given her more easier fights. But for me, I'm used to being the underdog, I don't have a perfect record. I've had losses, I've had wins, but I've always fought my butt off. So all my fans know that, and that's why I keep fans to this day through losses and wins. So for her, it's gonna be such a different test because she's never tested like this. Like I'm gonna test her. So we're gonna see what she's made of because I'm gonna bring it.
Now she has a very limited MMA experience, but has a world of experience when it comes to Muay Thai, kickboxing, or more so Muay Thai, and has shown her talent by winning both those atomweight championships in those sports. Without a doubt, this is a very serious test for you on the feet. Does this fight boil down to just being cautious and finding that right entry point to get your hands on her, take her down, or even does her submission win that she got in August? She landed a rear naked choke submission. Does that mean maybe even on the ground she's not necessarily going to be an easy task?
My breakdown of this fight really is I'm more game as far as skills to stand up with her than she is to catch up with me on the ground in MMA. I've had so much experience with MMA and ground, and I think that's where the bigger gap is in skill on the ground. So for me as a smart fighter, I'm gonna aim to take it to the ground. I'm gonna take it to where I will finish it. But for me, honestly, if you see my fights, I'm ready to go toe to toe. As the older I get and the higher caliber I fight, I need to be a smarter fighter. Yeah, sure, I can test myself and scrap with her. That'd be interesting. But for the smarter fight, I'm gonna use my MMA. And MMA now is such evolved into a whole nother sport that you need to train for. The transition from stand up to ground is really important in this fight, and this is going to be key in this fight. I think that's the hole that she has. Maybe she's trained gi jiu-jitsu, very good stand up, but she hasn't had the experience of transitioning like I have.
It's interesting that you bring up the point that like the gap on the ground is bigger now, because most people would think, oh, she's got a Thai champion, she's got like 80 plus fight Muay Thai, that it'd be a bigger gap for you. But I know you have a Muay Thai background yourself. Do you feel that confidence in that it's a bigger gap when it comes to the ground stuff? Because is it just like, yeah, she has more experience than you in Muay Thai, but you can catch up more in Muay Thai and technique, but to catch up on years of grappling, is that just a harder thing to do, and that's why you feel that way?
Yes, it's a lot of people. You got to look at MMA as a sport, and if you've watched MMA, you've had Mackenzie Dern, you've had a lot of these grapplers just learn to tuck their chin and throw something and be tough enough to get it to the ground, but it's hard for somebody to catch up to a black belt like Angela Lee on the ground. You know what I mean? It just takes more time. And for me also, I got to reiterate this. People have got to understand MMA is a whole new curriculum. It's not just breaking the sport apart to stand up to ground. It is putting it together and being in those places. That failed shot to the back take, the little transitions and scrambles is key in MMA.
Now, that said, she, still does have all this experience, 80 plus fights in Muay Thai, like I mentioned. When you're looking at her on video, or your coaches are looking at her at Jackson Wink to study and scout her, because this fight will start on the feet before it can get to the ground. What do you see that makes her such a difficult task for her opponents, that she has been so successful in her striking? Is it her speed, or is it more than that? On a technical level, is she very good?
I think that there's a lot of technical stand-up people. I think that Stamp's special thing is she's extremely confident. um, and she's extremely strong. So in her Muay Thai stance, Stamp is almost immovable.
Mm.
She's very, very strong. You really have to catch her, and she's very confident. She's never not moved forward, and she's almost, her presence has. I've seen other people fight her. They seem kind of hesitant and timid
Okay.
when they face Stamp. So I think that's a strength. But to be honest, a big of a strength like that can be your weakness also in a MMA sport so vast and different tools.
At Jackson Wink, which is one of the very elite training gyms in the world, have you been working with anybody specifically in terms of training partners that you feel can mirror her style very well?
I actually did not go to Jackson's this camp. I
Oh,
stayed at home in Houston.
okay.
Yeah, I stayed at home in Houston, worked some very high level Muay Thai with Corley, Michael Chase Corley, and then I worked with Jeremy Mahon on the MMA aspect. But of course, Michelle's my mentor through it all, so we talk a lot about game plan and and she just had a similar fight herself where she was
Right.
facing a strong
Yep.
stand-up person. Um, but yeah, we just game planned it through. I think also game plan is a culture of MMA that people in Muay Thai and boxing don't use. Really, like in Muay Thai, you just show up and you fight the best you
Mm.
can. In MMA, we really pick apart these. It's really a cerebral game, and the game plan has been very specific, and I've been sticking to it.
Is there any reason why you didn't go to Jackson Wink? Is this a one-time thing, or will you maybe not go there as much as in the past?
I've been in such a transition lately. The last two camps I've been in Asia. This one I've been in Houston. It's really hard fighting overseas because when I first signed, I didn't know where to go. So I just figured I needed to be in Asia. So I went to Tiger, and now I went back home just to be at home a little more with my house and my taking care of my car. The things at
Yeah,
home.
yeah.
Um, and fighting so active. I just really wanted to be at home this time, and the camp was so phenomenal. Maybe I might stay home more.
You
And it's really not a testament to Jackson's or anywhere else. It's just being at home gives you a different
Yeah,
comfort.
yeah, no, I totally understand. You have a Muay Thai background, like I mentioned, made your one Super Series debut in September, split decision win. Since MMA has had some highs and lows for you, has there ever been a thought to, would you transition maybe into Muay Thai full time with one if this fight doesn't go positively? Or do you feel, like you mentioned earlier, it's just maybe a different mentality in the sport, and with a new mentality, fighting a different way, more strategic, you see a whole lot of upside in your MMA career? Or do you just want to do both going forward? It offers, two revenue sources going forward.
I'm in such a good place in my life right now in my career because in the beginning, I think American culture too, not American culture, MMA culture, you want like undefeated record so that you can make it to the stage and this and
Yeah.
that. And I stressed so much that I lost a lot because I was mentally not there. Right now, I'm in a space where I'm just a fighter, and fighters fight. So I'm just gonna take whatever fight comes my way. As long as it challenges me, I'm happy. As long as it's on a stage where I can represent women well, I'm happy. I'm just here to compete. I'm here to give good shows. I understand why Donald Cerrone, who I've talked to plenty at Jackson's about it, I understand why he is the way he is because it really gives you a freedom to compete at your best because you're not worried about any other things past your performance. So to answer your question, I'm fighters fight. I'll take whatever one.
Have you were born in Vietnam, but have lived most of your life here in the U.S. What's interesting about one, and I'm sure the purpose of this is to have fighters connect with their audience in the Eastern Hemisphere. Is often fighters from the West will be listed as from a country in the East, unlike the bios, and when they're announced in the arena. For example, Angela and Christian Lee are listed as being from Singapore, even though they seem about as American as you can be. However, I'm
Right.
glad to see you represent the U.S. in one and not Vietnam. Did that promotion ever come to you about saying we'd like you to represent Vietnam, or did you always put down the United States, and there was never a discussion from them about maybe representing Vietnam in your fights?
There was never a discussion. I'm not sure what Angela or the other fighters' situations are. It could be family, it could be personal, it could be anything. But for me, I always said that I want to represent, I want everybody to know, even in Vietnam when I do interviews, I am Vietnamese heritage, raised in America. So my nation is America and my heritage is Vietnam. And I've always made sure that they would list that, and they've never given me any issues about it.
All right, fair enough. Now, I have been told fighters don't give themselves their nickname. Teammates or coaches often do. When you first started getting called Killer B, what were your original thoughts? And also, were you also just so thankful you got a really cool nickname and not some of the weirder ones that fighters have nowadays?
Thanks. I'm glad you think it's cool. My very first fight for Legacy, which is my first fight ever, I was walking out and all the crowd, like I don't know if it was friends or just random fans or anything. It was my very first fight, and they were just like, kill her, kill her, kill her, B. So I played with that word and I just kept it. I figured, this is what they want me to be, and I'm here for the supporters, so I kept that name. And luckily, my supporters have good taste. So that's a good thing.
All right, so when I, end these interviews, I often want to find out more about the fighter. So, when people watch this, fans, maybe newcomers to the fighter, can learn something they didn't expect to know. What are some of the things you like to do away from fighting? Because I know a lot of fighters, the stress of a camp, and it takes a lot of toll on a person, physically, mentally. You got to go away, do some things, have fun. What are some of the things you like to do that has nothing to do with fighting? I've heard from fighters, ride a motorcycle, cooking, a lot of video games, movies, just hanging with the family. What are some of the things Killer B likes to do when she's not fighting?
I'm a huge book nerd, and I love to cook. I actually used to cook for people at their houses and stuff like
Okay.
that. So I love to cook, and working on a cookbook right now too. So it's just
Nice.
like, yeah, I feel happy at home. I've been offered so many sponsorships from meal prep companies that I'm just like, I just enjoy cooking my own
Yeah.
food. So a lot of reading and a lot of cooking. I know it sounds boring to some, but
Well, okay, so
it's fun.
give me the book you're reading now, and what is your favorite, like, cuisine to cook?
Every camp, every fight week, I read Relentless by Tim
Okay.
Grover. He's a Kobe's sports psychologist. And then my favorite dish to make is probably steak, kale salad, and noodles.